Friends, World War II was not merely a military conflict. It was a deep and lasting wound on humanity, a wound whose marks are still visible in 2025 when we look at today's global politics, ongoing wars, shifting alliances, and economic tensions. Because with the help of declassified documents and modern historical research, we now clearly understand that this war did not start suddenly in 1939, but was the result of a long chain of events driven by anger, humiliation, fear, and the silence of powerful nations. The roots of this tragedy go back to 1919, when World War I ended and the Treaty of Versailles was signed, a treaty that was meant to ensure peace, but instead planted the seeds of another catastrophe by placing full responsibility for the war on Germany through the War Guilt Clause and forcing it to pay massive reparations worth roughly $270 billion in today's money, a burden that destroyed the German economy and crushed ordinary people, leading to extreme hyperinflation, widespread unemployment, hunger, homelessness, and a complete loss of dignity, creating an atmosphere of desperation in which people were ready to believe anyone who promised hope and revenge. It was in this environment that Adolf Hitler rose to power, not only as a dictator, but as a master manipulator who understood how to exploit human fear and resentment, using propaganda to convince people that Germany had not truly lost the war, but had been betrayed from within. And by blaming minorities, especially Jews and political opponents, he redirected public anger away from the real causes of suffering. By the early 1930s, Hitler had taken full control of Germany and openly violated the Treaty of Versailles by rebuilding the military. Yet the world largely remained silent, a silence that historians in 2025 now identify as one of the greatest moral and political failures of the 20th century, because Britain and France believed that appeasement would prevent another war, and that satisfying Hitler's demands would bring stability. Encouraged by this weakness, Hitler annexed Austria, dismantled Czechoslovakia through false promises, and finally launched a full-scale invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, using the Blitzkrieg strategy, a fast and terrifying form of warfare, combining tanks, air power, and relentless speed, even pushing soldiers beyond human limits with stimulant drugs. And although Britain and France declared war, their lack of immediate action during the so-called phony war gave Germany valuable time to strengthen its position. Soon after, Denmark and Norway fell. France collapsed, despite its powerful defences, and although the dramatic evacuation at Dunkirk saved hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers and preserved a fragile sense of hope, by the end of 1940, Germany dominated most of Europe. Britain stood alone against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. The Soviet Union remained a temporary and uneasy partner, and the United States stayed on the sidelines, making it clear from our 2025 perspective that World War II was not just a story of battles, weapons, and dictators, but a tragic lesson about how human choices, fear-driven politics, propaganda, and global inaction can combine to push the world toward unimaginable destruction. Lessons that still matter and still warn us today.